Okay, so Jared back again here, and then with me I have Brandy. She's our expert in any of this robotevents.com website. So I'll let Brandy introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Brandy Bollinger, and I am a team engagement manager with the REC Foundation. I cover basically the Dakotas to Maine and the upper Midwest. And I am also a VRC coach. I've been a VRC coach for like about 12 years now, so quite a long time. So I kind of look at this from an REC Foundation standpoint, but then again also like as a coach standpoint, why it's important to know how to navigate robot events.
Yeah, okay, so I logged into my account, so this is what you'll see once you have an account created. If you look here, right away it brings you to this home screen, and I've got a number of teams that are registered because I'm also coaching a VRC program and a VEX IQ program, so I've got 6 IQ teams registered, and I have a few pending VRC programs because Holly's a brand new school to VEX, so I have not quite got the funding for them yet to pay their fees, but I'm in there. So that's the nice thing about the RSC page. So you can register a team and have it ready. You know, if you're waiting for your school district to process POs, things like that, and you can at least get your teams all dialed in and locked in, and then you can pay that stuff later. So that's kind of nice. But when you get onto the home screen, there's a lot of stuff here, and you'll see I've got some things up here too, like this is an admin button, and that's not going to show up unless unless you've gone through your event partner certification and you're going to be hosting an event. So that's a little bit of a different thing that you won't see. But you've got a lot of options over here on the left side where you can take a look at your team and punch in some team information. If you're just registering a team though, it shows up right on the home screen. It's pretty easy to find. We go register a team. And we could just run through, and we'll do a fake team here, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You just follow along with it. So if you're going to be doing IQ, you'll click on a VEX IQ competition team, hit next. If you're registering for other programs, those are there. In Holly, we are all practicing in the high school at Holly, so all of our team numbers are 56549. I got lucky because Holly, Minnesota, that's their zip code, and that number was available, so I took it, and I thought that would work out pretty good. But you can see I've got that, and it just has add another team because I've already registered one. If you haven't had any teams, it'll just say register new organization. You'll go through and start that, fill in your information for all that. But to add another team or to create a team, you'll punch in your information for your school or your organization, wherever you're going to be meeting. In this case, I've got it set up at Holly Elementary. It should be the secondary. I go fix that. But
and if you're registering an organization for the first time here, you're going to use that search function there to look for the name of your school. It's very important that when you're putting it in there, you type it exactly like it would be on, let's say, like a Google search. So if you do a Google search and, you know, let's say you're like St. Mary School, whether or not it's Saint is spelled out or it's ST, you're just going to want to make sure that you're looking for the official name of your organization.
Yeah, and if you are a public school, they pop up as you're typing it in. And there might be more than one option there, so yeah, double check that, and it's kind of nice it autofills. I remember that.
And if you're at a school that had a team previously, let's say you're like, you know, at your school, Holly, let's say they had a team before you came along, you can contact your team engagement manager and they can actually transfer the old team from the previous owner over to you with your admin's permission.
So as you go through, there are some things that you really should go through, your code of conduct and your student-centered policy. And you want to have an idea of what the game is that you're signed up for. So if you haven't done that stuff yet, do that so you know what you're getting into. This code of conduct, we're going to have a section on that later today where we're going to cover some stuff. But that is very important to understand at a competition. There's a lot of things that go into that. So we'll talk about that in another section coming up here. But go through these documents, check those off as you go through them, and then you can click on next and pretty easy. We punch in your information. If you have a financial or person managing your stuff, they have to have a Robot Events account set up. So in my case, I just chose to be the financial contact for my organization. But if you're in a district where you have a business office person that's running all this stuff, they have to create their own robot events account to actually manage the financial part of it.
Yeah,
So-
and from my experience, it's actually pretty common to have your financial contact, your primary contact, and your secondary contact be different people. Some organizations, like community-based organizations, have the same person for all three. So it really depends on what your organization's goals are, and if you are at a school, what their policies are there. So you're going to want to know that before you register.
Right, and now, so this part here, it says organization, administrative, district contact. So this might be a building principal, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so that is, let's say a coach stops responding to the REC Foundation's emails, or there's an error in their registration and we can't get a hold of the coach. This is who we're going to get a hold of at your school or your homeschool co-op, or maybe like some kind of community-based organization that would be able to answer some questions for us, like, hey, where'd your coach go?
Right, so then, our principal's name's Kelly Anderson, and I know she wouldn't have a problem with me punching her information here, so we'd put all that in there, and pretty easy.
Yeah, best practice would be, if you're not sure who to put on this, find out who.
Right.
And it's great that you have such an awesome working relationship with your principal at your school that you
Right.
can do this.
Did they just add this? Because I don't...
It is. It's
Okay, I was
brand
going to
new
say,
this
because I just
season.
registered a bunch of teams, and I don't remember putting this in, and I just noticed I typed in her email address, and she does not have a robot events thing. So that's great. Now I have to go to my principal, which is good, and make sure that she creates an account so that she has access.
Yeah, this is an awesome way for the administration at your school to become more aware of the efforts that your students and your coaches and the parents on your team are putting forth to create respect for robotics in your community. And additionally, like I said, if one coach transitions out of the team and we are looking to re-engage a team at that school, this is the administrative person that we're going to contact and say, hey, Jared is no longer with this school, or maybe Jared is bringing another person in place of him. Is it okay if we transfer the team to
Right.
this new person?
Yep, and that's great. So when I get back to Holly, I need to talk to my admin and have them go through and create an account. Right now, I'm the only one in the district with a robot events account, so in order for me to go through this and go forward, I'm going to have to punch in my email address here, but that's all right. We'll do that for now. And then now this page here is great because you can put a bunch of stuff in here for your team information. All of my teams in Holly are brand new this year, so they haven't even met as a team yet, so they're going to get to introduce them. But if throughout the season, if they develop their YouTube page or Twitter and some social media stuff, this is where that stuff goes. Maybe a little bit of information about the team. If they have some sponsors you can represent, if you go through that process and have team sponsors, it's a great place to give them a shout out so that they're recognized on the site here.
And the nice thing about this page is you'll notice none of it is required when you're signing up. So the idea is if you're registering in the summertime and you haven't started meeting yet, you can leave this blank and then come back to it in a little bit. All of this information will be editable from your coach dashboard in Robotevents later.
Yep, and you'll see I put in Holly Nuggets because that's our mascot. That's not going to be their team name. They're going to pick something that is, Mr. Dolan, our host today, says is good for a microphone. A team name that's microphone friendly would be a good suggestion to start with. But I let my teams choose their name, and they kind of vote on what they want to do. So this is editable. You can change that. Really, I think it can be changed during the season. But
Absolutely. Yep. So if right before an event your team decides that they want to change their team name or their robot name, you can go in and edit it before the event, and that's what Robotevents will automatically load in when it creates the match schedule and all of the announcer sheets that are read at competitions.
Now, does the robot name show up on the announcer sheets, or is it just the team name?
It does. So this year, one of the new features that we have with the Tournament Manager Mobile is if you've ever volunteered at VEX Worlds, you notice all of the announcers are announcing from tablets. So that is actually going to be included with the Tournament Manager for all events this year, and all of that information will be available for the announcers to use at qualifying tournaments and event region championships.
That's awesome. That's awesome because we always had that robot name thing, and I don't think it ever showed up before. So like the kids would have their robot and their name, but now people will see like their team name and their robot has an identified name on there. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. So now you're at your events, your announcers can be like, and here's your team 123A driving their robot Roboty, and it'll be awesome.
Okay, so that's registering a team. That's pretty self-explanatory. If you have multiple teams, I just clicked on finish, but if you don't hit the finish, there's an add another team option. If you accidentally click on finish, go back to your dashboard, hit register a team, you can add another team. So it's pretty easy to go through and register teams. If you go over into, so you see this is, we don't like to see all these red check marks in February. Right now, these little red check marks, these are consent forms, and they are very, very important. Your team should not be allowed to compete at a tournament if they don't have these consent forms filled out. Talk about what the waiver is and what that consent form is for.
Yeah, so our participant release form protects the students, the coaches, the parents, and the event partners for all official REC Foundation events. And basically, it's a release of liability that kind of holds you harmless if something were to happen at an event. It gives the event partners and participants at the event the ability to take and post pictures of the event, those kind of things. And it was just actually announced at the REC EP Summit in July that in the coach's dashboard, we're working on getting it where it will actually send you a reminder, because we know that coaches get busy and it's really easy to forget that you haven't had all of your students fill out the participant release forms. So if you put in an accurate number of students when you register your team, it will basically send you an email that's like, hey dude, you have 5 kids on your team and you only have 1 participant release form uploaded, you need 4 more. So that is a feature that will be coming this season for coaches through Robotevents.
Right, so this is the paper version, which you can fill out a paper version, print it out, sign and date, and have all that stuff, that you're agreeing to, signed and dated, and they can be scanned and uploaded. There's a mobile version where I believe that's still a thing, right? You can, if you go to on a cell phone and click on this link. And the nice thing, if you do it on a tablet or a cell phone, you can sign with your finger, and it can be done electronically. So you can just in East Grand Forks, I had Remind as a communication method. So I sent out stuff to my parents, my kids, through the Remind app, and I could just send out this link and say, hey, I need you to fill this out. Please make sure that you get your correct team number on there. But every parent needs to go through and sign this electronic document, which saved me a lot of time. I didn't have to print these out. I didn't have to collect the sheets. I just had to go and verify that they actually did it, which that took a lot of time sometimes, because sometimes it would be, hey, our tournament's tomorrow and you still haven't done it yet, and we've sent this out 2 months ago or whatever. So you do have to do a little tracking and check to see if they do it, but it'll automatically fill it out. So you can go here and say, okay, I got a minor participating. This agreement is for a minor. The parents could fill out this information.
It takes less than 2 minutes to complete.
Yeah, and then you go click to sign, and then if you are on a tablet or a phone, you just sign it with your finger. I'm not sure what can you sign it with a mouse?
You can use your mouse too.
Yeah, there we go. It actually is identical to what my signature looks like. My friends always say that I sign my stuff Jim Saw. But yeah, so you sign it right on there. My laptop doesn't have a touch screen, but if you had a touch screen, you might be a little more accurate on your signature. And then you check this electronic signature consent. So, yeah, is there anything else we should cover?
If you're a coach and you've been coaching for a while, the REC Foundation and event partners used to accept paper copies in person. That's no longer a thing. You have to do it digitally. Whether it is you print it and upload it, or you use the electronic form. As a coach myself, I have all of my parents use the electronic one because it takes a long time to scan all of those documents and upload them as a coach. And when you've got, 30 plus kids on your team, imagine spending, 5 minutes per contract scanning them and uploading them. That's a significant amount of time for these coaches. So the electronic version, so much better. And if you are maybe in an area where, not all of your families might have internet access at home, I talked to our school and borrowed a bunch of tablets and had a parent night where all the parents came up and I had all the tablets set out and all they had to do was type in their student's name and sign it right there, and they were done. And the parents weren't allowed to leave the meeting until they completed the form. So I just sat there on Robotevents and waited for it to upload, and then that was That was the best.
You're done with 95% of them.
Yep,
Yeah.
and there's no more tracking parents down and students down throughout the season, so that's my tip and trick on this one.
Yep, and you only need one consent form done for the entire season, and it covers all these, sanctioned robot events.
The
right?
only caveat to that would be if, say, one of your teams dissolves, maybe you have, some students move to other teams, according to the rules that are allowed in the game manual, you would want to have them fill out a new consent form for the team that they're on.
Okay.
So whatever team they end up with at the end, have them fill out that. Now, the REC Foundation, we can't edit any of these. Once you've sent it, because it's a legal binding contract, I can't go in and reassign, John Smith on your team from team A to team B because you signed a legal contract saying he's on team A. So you just have to fill out a new form.
Right. Yeah. So that's great.
As a parent.
That's good to know. And that's something too that if you're a new coach out there, if you do have students that need to move from one team to another, it happens. I think there's a rule about being a drive team member, or is that just VRC?
Both IQ and VRC have rules in the game manual under the definition of student. So if you want to look those up, I believe it's on page 7 of both game manuals. It will kind of explain to you when it's okay to have students move from team to team. But the idea is the robot that is built should always match the skills and abilities of the students that are on the team. So say you've got a superstar programmer that's on your A team, and he leaves the A team and goes to your C team. Your A team should still be able to understand the programming and all of those kind of things that were built for that team, and now your student can go to the A team or to the C team. But what they can't do is just go and be a programmer for every team. So you are going to want to read the game manual and read the REC student-centered policy to ensure that you are within those as a coach, a parent, and a student.
All right. So we'll point out, if you're looking for tournaments, how do we go about registering for a tournament? So up here, there's competitions, and you can choose your program. We're talking IQ today, so we'll go VEX IQ. And right here, I think this populates everything in the world that's available. If you want to look through it that way, that would take forever. If you're looking for an event in your region, you can go and just right over here, find your region. So we're United States. We're going to go to, we're in Minnesota, so we're going to choose Minnesota. And you'll see all the events throughout the season in Minnesota, and you can refine your search however you want. But these are the ones that are currently have been gone through and been approved by the REC. So we have a few, but there's not very many yet because it's, July, August 1st now, I suppose.
Yeah. The REC Foundation event posting deadline is October 15th. So as schools kind of start around the country, we are going to see a lot more events being populated on here because coaches and event partners are still working with their schools to get event dates settled. One of my favorite options on this is actually if you scroll all the way to the bottom on the left side menu, there's a checkbox that you can check that says show only events with open spots. So if you are in a region where events fill up quickly, you can check this box and it will only show you events that have spots open. Now, caveat for registering for events, you do have to have your team registration fee paid. You can't just be registered, you have to be registered and paid for the season in order to register for events. So if you are waiting for your school to send a check or you haven't paid by credit card, you're going to want to do that before you can register for events.
Yeah, make friends with the financial person in your district office, because sometimes things come up fast. You're like, hey, I need this done, and if you have a good rapport with them, sometimes you can get it done a little faster. So I was fortunate when I was coaching in East Grand Forks that one of our students, his mom happened to be our accountant. So I was nice. It was I had her on speed dial. So if I had any questionable things I needed to buy, I was like, can I do this? And she'd say, okay, put it on my credit card, but only, make sure you get your other stuff done for it, So make sure you follow whatever your district rules are, obviously, but it's good to know people. So one thing on this, too, you'll see, this is really, it doesn't say early bird. There's early bird registrations for some of these regional events. Okay, early bird opens on October 16th. So every team is allowed, was it one early bird or?
So it was just announced at the REC Foundation Event Partners Summit that all early birds in the regions that offer early bird are up to 3 for qualifying tournaments and 3 for signature events. So there's 2 separate early birds now. 1 for signature events, 1 for qualification, and you get 3 now.
Okay, so yeah, that early bird thing's really cool. If you go and look at so if you're your regional coordinator will probably have the plan of events that are in your region, but you can look at, in Minnesota we have a spreadsheet that shows all the events and tentative dates or dates that they're planning on having them. You can go through and look at those and decide, there might be a tournament in a city that is really popular that you really want your teams to get to. So you might want to save your early bird for that tournament if that was really important that you get your teams to that. So that's something to think about too. Look at that schedule of events and which events you want to bring your teams to.
So for all the new coaches out there, can you explain why early bird is important? I guess what early bird is to begin with and why it's important to you as a coach to have access to early bird.
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So as I was saying too, like with that early bird, it means that I can get into an event. It allows me to get into an event ahead of teams that maybe have competed at 4 or 5 tournaments already. They're not allowed to register until the standard registration opens up because they've used up all their early birds. So that early bird is really nice. So that if you're a new team, you get kind of priority to get into an event if you have not competed yet.
Yeah, essentially it's a cap on the number of events that you can register for to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to register.
Yeah, it's great because some of these events fill up super fast, and if you're a little bit late, like I was coaching in East Grand Forks before I moved to the Hawley district. I happened to have a student walk in on June 1st when the Mall of America tournament registration opened up, and they needed to finish up a project. So I was working with the student in a wood shop, because I'm a tech ed teacher, and I looked at the clock, and it was like 30 minutes after registration opened, and I sprinted upstairs to get my team registered, and it was like, oh, it filled up already. So,
yeah.
And that's a little bit different because it was the first event, so there is no early bird priority because everybody has early bird priority still. But thankfully, I was able to get them on a wait list, and it sounds like East Grand Forks Schools got into the tournament. So
I'm excited to see how this event plays out this weekend for sure.
Great.
I came all the way here from Michigan to see this event, so.
Okay, so you can also search for events through like a map of local events, which is kind of fun because it populates all these balloons, and you can see where things are going on around the country. You can zoom in, and then like those balloons get a little bit more spaced out. Here's our Mall of America event here. And
I prefer this search because I'm more of a visual person. Like I'm the person who likes to look at a map and be like, all right, what events are in my area? And again, over on the left side, you can change your search parameters. So maybe you want to look at events that happened in your area last year, or you want to search for teams in your area. Maybe you want to host an event at your school, and you're like, hey, I want to see what was available in my area or what teams have registered this year. So you can kind of do historic searches here to help you network with other teams and for events and kind of team things. So there is no contact information on the map here for the coaches and the teams and things, but you can reach out to your team engagement manager or your event engagement manager, and they can give you a way to get in contact with those people. So whatever region you're searching in, your REC Foundation contact person will be over on the right over there. So if you click on events for here in Minnesota, it'll show Chris, who's our event engagement manager. And if you click on teams, it'll show my contact information since I'm the team engagement manager.
All right. Let's go back here. So I think I mean, if you go to register for an event, maybe we should probably do that. So it probably won't let us go in because they're not open. And this one's full, but let's see.
If you go to Michigan, there's a qualifying tournament that's open.
Okay.
There's actually an event happening in Michigan this weekend as well. So.
An IQ event? Or VRC?
Yeah, an IQ and VRC event is happening in Monroe, Michigan this weekend at the Monroe County Fair. They're actually setting up an event outside under tents. in Monroe right now.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, my teams have been to the event. It's fantastic. Hi, Mike.
Monroe. Here we go. VEX IQ. Okay, we're going to click here. Now, this is cool because, like, hey, I'm a Minnesota team. Is it okay for me to sign up for this Michigan tournament?
It is absolutely okay for you to sign up for this Michigan tournament. So the thing to know about signing up for events outside of your region is that each region has what's called an event region championship, and that's how you qualify for Worlds, is to get a spot from your event region championship to the VEX World Championship. So if you compete outside of your region, you can't earn a spot to the event region championship, therefore you can't earn a spot to VEX Worlds through this, but it is a great opportunity for you to get in extra competitions, to compete with people outside of your region, and to kind of get to know others in the robotics community.
Okay, so we're going to take our Holly Nuggets AA team here. We're going to sign them up. We're not actually going to sign them up, but we're going to go through and the process. So I'm registered. I'm going to Michigan. We're taking a road trip. It's going to be a great time. This is going to pop up. So you've got number of male students, number of female, number of non-binary team members. So they want to know your team demographics, so we're going to put that in there. And then, I don't know, we're going to say 2 and 2 here.
So a lot of people ask me why the REC Foundation collects this data at team registration. And the idea is our development area and our operations area use this information to help us get grants, because all of the grants that the REC Foundation gives out to teams come from our sponsors. And our sponsors want to know this information because they can decide maybe what kind of initiatives that they're supporting at their company and allow us to support teams with this information.
Yeah, and I like this part at the bottom here. It's like other programs your team has, participated in. So, like, oh, I didn't know there's girls who code. And I can look that up and like, what's that all about? Like, maybe I want to get more girls involved in my district. That might be something to take a look at and say, hey, we should look into this. That's kind of cool.
Absolutely.
So.
It also allows your team engagement manager to see what other programs you participate in. So when they're giving you support, they might be able to be like, well, we know that you're accustomed to participating in this robotics program. Here's what we do that's similar, and here's what we do that's different than that. For your information. Oh, maybe because you go back.
I don't know. Let's go back here and see. All right. Maybe I missed something. So we're just gonna run through here because that's all auto-filled.
And if this happens to you at home, just do what Jared's doing. Just kind of start over. There we go.
Oh, we're unable to find the page you're looking for.
Is it maybe because the event it could be closed for registration?
Maybe. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you. But if it does, who should we contact?
You can contact either your team engagement manager and your event engagement manager for your region. Likely, if you're on trying to register an event and there's something wrong with the event registration page, reach out to your event engagement manager or your EEM. If you're not in the United States, then you're going to reach out to your RSM, your regional support manager.
All right, so yeah, it looks like the deadline's August 2nd. So anyway, you would click through there, and then it will bring you to a pay page. There's an option to punch in a credit card. If you have a purchase order already created through your district, you can upload that file. If you're like me and you're like registering for tournaments way ahead of time, and money is the last thing you think about, there's a pay later option, but it's nice to have that stuff thought about before you go in. If you can get it done right away, it's great. In the district I was at before Holly, they allowed me to use the credit card for registering for teams, so I could take care of that right away and do the paperwork as I went. So it kind of depends on where you're at and what you're doing, but if you are doing purchase orders, you want to upload that purchase order at that point if you have it available, or you can hit pay later and then go back into your orders. So if you go my account, and if you go into orders, we have a comment from inside here. If your district needs a quote, you can create a quote to send to your district so that they can get
you can essentially add everything to your cart and then select pay later, and it creates an invoice for you. The thing you want to watch out for, though, is some events have a payment deadline. So that means you either have to have a credit card payment or a PO received, not PO processing, PO received to the REC Foundation accounting office in order for you to stay on that event. If you have not submitted a payment by that payment registration deadline, you automatically get moved to the wait list, which means you're no longer on the list of teams that's competing there. So if you are using a PO with your school, like you said, you're going to want to make sure that they get it uploaded well before that date.
Right. Right. So you can look here. I actually have some VRC teams that I registered pay later because I'm hoping that I might qualify for some grant money. And there's an invoice option here, so you can click on that to get that quote. So.
Very, very helpful. I get a lot of emails from coaches saying, hey, can you create me an invoice? And this is exactly how you do it. You can do it from your Robotevents dashboard.
Okay, so then down here you can change payment, your payment method right here. So if I were ready with the purchase order, then I can click on here and change payment method.
So if, let's say, you know, your business office thought they were going to have their PO done on time, but they can't, and now you're like, oh no, I really want to go to this competition, you can go in here and change it to credit card and pay right there so that you're on the wait list, or you're off the wait list onto the registered teams list. Very helpful.
All right. Let's see, anything else in here that we want to cover for new teams?
Do we want to cover how to access the official Q&A on here? That
yeah, I'm going to let you run through that. I usually just Google it, so you hop
Yeah,
on
sure. So when you would like to access the official Q&A, which is where you're going to find, let's say there's something in the game manual that doesn't seem clear, and you want to ask the game design committee a question about that. The way to get a hold of that is not to email the game design committee, not to yell at Grant Cox on the internet, but to submit an official Q&A through Robotevents. So only the primary, secondary, and financial contact can go in and post a question on the Q&A. Now the thing about the Q&A is, while we are used to the game manual being like the binding contract, anything that is responded to on the Q&A by the game design committee is considered binding. So if, let's say, you know, the game manual had an error in it, and like, the tape on the floor was an inch off, if they answer a Q&A to say, hey, it looks like in the picture on page 18, the tape is 1 inch off, what is the correct measurement? The answer on there would be the official binding answer. And a lot of times, teams that submit the Q&As to the game design committee, those end up coming out in future rule updates. So it's really important for coaches to look at the official Q&A and know what questions have been asked and answered on the official Q&A before they go to tournaments. So if you go under competitions, and let's say, you know, we're going to click on IQ. When you come to this dashboard where we were searching for events, you're on the left here, this bottom blue button is Q&A. Now there are 2 official Q&As. One is for the game, and one is for judging. So if there's something in the Guide to Judging, which is a public document for all teams, coaches, parents, anybody to read about how the judging process works, you can ask questions on the Q&A about both of these things. So if we click on Q&A, it actually shows you all of the questions that have been asked and what the game design committee's response to them have been. Now, not all of them have been answered exactly. Grant Cox at the EP Summit kind of talked about how the game design committee goes about answering these questions. And he told us that they kind of do it in batches. So the game design committee will be notified when someone asks a question. The game design committee will discuss it and kind of come up with what they feel is a fair answer. And then the answers will be posted on here. So
yeah, this is a great resource when your kids have a question and they're like, hey, is this legal? Can I do this? And my first response is always, I don't know. Did you check the Q&A? And I just tell them, you know, go into, you know, I usually just say Google, you know, Robotevents Q&A, but you know, if you go to the website and just click like right where it was, that's how you get there.
Yep.
And they can scroll through here, and there's all sorts of questions that have been asked, and most of the time they find the answer to it, because if it's something that's alarming, somebody's probably asked a question about it.
Yep. So the answers to all of these questions, like you said, are public. You can just Google it. But if you are a coach that cannot find the answers to a question and you want to ask a question, you have the ability to do that. And you can do that here by clicking Submit a New Question.
So this is cool. So I clicked on a question here, and it's really nice when you can state what part of the game manual you're referencing. So this person who posted this has probably posted before. And they've put in here, according to SG2, it's clear that robots may not expand horizontally beyond the 11 by 20 starting dimensions. Anyway, they're referencing a rule. They're going through and explaining that. That's a good way to start, like, your questions if you do have a question. So, any other like best practices when you're asking questions in Q&A?
Yeah, so asking a question is the main thing, because this is the Q&A. You're asking a question, you're getting an answer. So just going in and typing up a statement like, I feel like SG1 is an unfair rule, that's probably not gonna, get a response from the game design committee. You might get a response that says, would you like to form that in a question? So making sure that you are giving specific examples of the rules in the book, and maybe point out what you think the either inconsistencies are or what the thing that needs to be clarified is.
Right. And so there's usage guidelines here, which would be a great place to look to see, like, how should I interact in this form. So go through that before, if you're going to post a question, review this part of it before you do that, so you're following those guidelines and everybody's using the same norms.
And reviewing the code of conduct before you do this, making sure that what you're posting is respectful
Yes.
is very important as well.
Have we had any questions in the chat with Q&A or? Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, so the question was, if you are a coach, and maybe you have high school teams and you have middle school teams, and one program is running at the high school and the other one's program at the middle school, how does that work when you register your teams?
So you as the coach can coach as many teams at as many different levels and as many different organizations as you want to. So a lot of times what we try to tell you to do is maintain an active list of the teams that you are actively coaching, right? So if you leave one school and go to another school, make sure that those teams at the old school are transferred to a new person. But the REC Foundation has something what's called our organizational policy. And you as a coach get a discount for having multiple teams at the same organization. And an organization is defined as teams that are coached by the same people, share the same resources, meet at the same locations, right? So if you were, a coach here in Minneapolis and then you had teams up in St. Cloud, those would be two different organizations because they're in two different locations. Same thing with, they say it's at a building. So if you have middle school and high school that are at separate buildings, those would be separate organizations because they're middle school teams and high school teams. Now, if you had, say, a blended junior high school, and all of your teams meet together and they share the same resources, share the same coaches, they could be the same organization. So it's all based on you as the coach knowing what makes up your organization. Now, the flat rate applies for teams in the same program. So if you're coaching, let's say, you're a middle school team and you're coaching IQ programs and VRC programs, because those are separate programs, they're separate organizations. If you go to the REC library, you can find a document on there that explains all of this in detail. And if you have any questions about your specific case, you're going to want to reach out to your team engagement manager. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So coach can have multiple organizations under their one email address, yeah. So me for example, I coach VRC, and I also have a Bell team through the REC Foundation, right? So when I log into my dashboard, I see my VRC teams at one place and my Bell teams at the same place, even though they're different programs. Now let's say I was a coach for, two different high schools. Maybe I'm a community coach and I'm coaching at two different high schools. I would register an additional organization, just like Jared showed us at the beginning how you register your teams. You just register them under a separate organization when it steps you through the process of where are these teams located. So
Okay.
from the crowd here, they just said, so when you go to register your teams, you can click add a new number and register that. But you can also, so let's say you coach a high school team and you're going to start a middle school team and you want all of your teams to have the same number. So when you're registering, when you're like establishing your middle school team, that area where it pre-populates the number, you can actually erase that number and put in a number to see if a number is available. Like you said, you were lucky because you got to have the zip code for your school.
Right.
You can actually choose your team number. So maybe if you're switching from a different robotics program to a VRC or VIQRC program and you want to keep your team number because you know you already have like shirts made and swag and banners and all of that kind of stuff, you can look to see if your number is available.
So would I have to go to register a new organization if I need to change a change the number?
Yep.
Okay. But if you're not changing the number, you just do add another team?
Yep.
Okay.
So right now you're under your base organization, your standard organization. So if you want to add another organization, you can do that. So Katie wants us to talk a little bit about organizational cost. Sure. So if you would like to go to the REC library for me, so I'll teach you a little bit about the REC Foundation here.
All right.
So
How do I
part of
get
my
there?
job is
Resources?
supporting teams. Yep. So if you just open up a new tab, are we streaming our ear hole?
Mm-hmm.
And you just go to recf.org, which is our new alias, so you don't have to type out roboticseducation.org every single time.
All right.
And under this right here at the top, you have REC Library. So depending on what program you coach, there is a library for each one of the programs. Up at the top is your search function. So if you're not exactly sure what you're looking for, you can kind of start typing in that search box, and it will give you suggestions for articles that already exist. So if you start typing the word organization, policy, it will give you
Organization. There we go. That's how we spell that.
and there you go. It popped up right there
Policy.
for you.
There
So
we
if you
go.
click on that, this article right here will give you examples of different kinds of organizations, what makes up an organization, whether you should be the same organization or different organizations. We talked earlier about the primary, financial, secondary, and organizational contact. So it's going to give you all of the information in here on when you're registering your teams and your organizations, whether you should register them as separate or one organization. And then if you keep scrolling down, it should give you some information on the pricing for each of these, which is our flat rate organization fee. So the thing about all of our REC Foundation programs is that they're supposed to be affordable and scalable. So as your team grows, you can add more teams. Once you've registered, you can register one team at a price, two teams at a price, all the way up to, once you've reached 6 teams in your organization, every team you register in the same organization after that, up to 22 teams, is only $950 flat fee.
Okay, we've got a great question here. It says, if I am coaching a team, they are all from the same school, but the school does not have a robotics program, and we are doing this from home. Can I still choose it as school team?
You're going to want to reach out to your team engagement manager to make sure that you get the official response on this one, and talk to the school, right? Because you don't want to go out representing a school without that school's permission. So reach out to the administration at your school and say, hey, we have students from your school that are participating in our community-based robotics program. Some schools have policies, like where I'm from in Michigan. If there's a student who would attend my school but is homeschooled instead, I have to offer them an opportunity to participate on my team. Legally, I have to. Not all schools are like that, so reach out to your school and your team engagement manager to get the exact answer on that one.
Okay, did that answer your question?
In a roundabout way, by giving you more information.
Feel free to, okay, she said thanks, so I think we're good.
And if you don't know who your team engagement manager is, you can go to robotevents.com/support, and it will give you information on who your team engagement manager and your event engagement manager are.
right.
So that's kind of, I think, pretty much it for Robotevents, other than if you would like to, again, after you've registered your teams, update your team contact information, those kind of things. And again, you do all of that from your account, and then click on My Teams over on the left. And that's where you can see a quick reference of all of your teams, kind of without all of the other information. So these Manage Contacts buttons on the side allow you to assign that primary, secondary, financial, and administrative contact for your teams. If you are the primary person on this account and you need to take yourself off, you're going to contact your team engagement manager. If you're the secondary or financial contact, you can manage those contacts right there in Robotevents yourself as the primary contact.
Now, were we planning on doing event partner stuff in this part? No, okay. So yeah, there's more stuff too. You know, in Robotevents, there's an admin page here. If you are somebody that's planning on hosting an event, we'll talk. We might talk a little bit more about that later on in a session if we have a lot of people that are asking about, you know, doing event partner stuff. So we could maybe look at that if there's people in the audience that want to talk about that a little bit later on. But that, again, like I said, this button doesn't pop up until you've talked with your
your EEM, yep.
Yep, the event engagement manager, and you have to go through and pass a certification course.
And a background check.
And a background check. That's right. Now, background check stuff's here. You'll have to do this, I think, if you're hosting an event.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Grant applications, if you're a new program, you might be past the point where you can get access to this. I'm not sure if you are or not, but there are some grant applications out there through the RAC.
Yep.
You can see I was fortunate enough to have Holly was accepted with some grants, some equipment for the school because they're a brand new program. So you have options there as well.
Yeah. So if you're an experienced coach and you've been doing this for a while, you used to reach out to your team engagement manager to get access to the grant interest survey. Now we actually have a whole grants team that just handles grants. So if you go to the recf.org, and then up at the top under, when it loads, I'll help you walk
Right,
through.
and then where we were at in Robotevents page, that was like, I've already filled out the interest thing, so you don't fill out the grant request there, but you can do that from the RAC Foundation page.
Yep, it's right under, if you click the drop down for teams there, and under for participants, there are grants. And this is a grant interest survey. So the idea is you fill it out and you tell us what your needs are right there under apply for a grant. You tell us what your needs are. Now, before you fill out this, you are going to need a lot of information. You're going to need to know about the demographics of your team. You're going to need to know about the socioeconomic status of your school. You're going to need your NCES number if you are with a public school. All of that information is available with a quick Google search. If you just go to Google and do like a NCES search, it will take you to a website that will give you literally all of this information. So there's a search tool. So if you go back to Google there.
Search
Yep.
for public schools.
Search for public schools. So if you click on that right there, you just type in the name of your school or the name of your city, and it will populate all of the information for you. So when you fill out your grant application, make sure that all of this information is accurate, because like I said, all of the grants that the RAC Foundation is able to offer to teams are coming from sponsors, and sometimes those sponsors have certain initiatives that they're looking for. Maybe they're looking for Title I schools or historically underserved individuals. They're looking for certain populations of people to award these grants to. So including that accurate information will assist the grants team in reviewing your application and awarding you something that you're eligible for according to the terms and conditions.
All right.
And if you have questions about grants, you can email grants@recf.org.
Anything else we need to cover on the Robotevents page? Any questions from the? Go ahead.
Sure. Like your organization number, like if you're team 11 or if you're team 1,000,011? So the question is there any advantage to having a lower team number as opposed to a higher team number? No, I don't think so. There are teams who maybe have been around for a long time. Like my team has been doing VEX since, I don't know, 2010 or something like that, and we have a 4-digit number. There are teams who have been doing this for not as long as us that have a lower team number, and there are some teams who just like a certain number. So it just all depends on A, what's available, or B, what you're looking to get out of your team number. So just because a team number is lower or higher doesn't necessarily indicate their level of experience or seniority, if you will, within the program.
All right, if there are no further questions, we're going to wrap up this segment and pause our live stream for things. Folks that are joining us through the Zoom session, please unmute your microphone. We're going to have a little bit of dead time, and you can converse with us directly with any questions that you have while Brandy's getting set up for our next session. So thank you.